All right, welcome back to Form Check Friday. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Hey, it's the first Form Check of 2024.
Hopefully everybody's already starting on their resolutions. They're, hitting the ground running.
You do that stuff, yeah.
I'm here with your host, Bryce.
I thought you were the host.
I'm the host. You're the host. We're all the hosts.
You guys are the host, and you get a host, and you get a host.
Yeah, but we're gonna get right into it, starting with our first submission. Last week, we left off with Steve.
Steve.
Been benching for a week, waiting for some advice.
Just hitting reps on reps with 315 for a week now.
He wants to stop moving around. He thinks he's really squirmy on the bench. Mm-hmm. And he wants to know if he's tucking his arms enough.
All right, Steve. I actually quite like your bench. I think you've got a bit of a heavier touch, but I think you do it well, right? I think you're using like enough of the bar kind of resting on the chest while maintaining really good control in the hands off the chest. Now, if you don't like the way that looks, or maybe it feels weird or unstable or something, you can always mess around with a lighter touch. But my concern is that it might not be as strong for you. It looks like you're pretty natural with this kind of heavier touch on the bench. So I would say that probably sticking with that is going to be the way to go. Now, you might be feeling a bit extra squirmy because these benches, like the one that you're benching on, these Life Fitness brand commercial benches, are just kind of poo-poo. They're not great. And it looks like you are an averagely or an overly, what am I trying to say here? You are an above average large guy, right? You've got some muscles and you're probably a bit too big for that bench. It probably feels bad because it's thin and you've got a back. So the construction of the bench is going to make things feel even a little less stable, maybe a little more slippery, a lot of that kind of stuff. I bet if you got yourself on a good like comp bench, probably a lot would feel a lot better very quick. All that being said, I do think that you are tucking enough. I would caution you against tucking any more than you are. I don't think you're over tucking, but your elbows are staying in a really good sort of path under the bar the whole time. And the direction the bar is going off your chest is consistently back over your shoulders, which is the bar path we're trying to achieve when we're benching. If you're finding yourself a little shaky between reps, it might be worth taking an extra second to kind of reset some of this tightness here. One thing with a heavier touch bench is when you come down, often you're going to get a little bit of relaxation. You're going to let those shoulders kind of elevate slightly during the pause. So when you press back up, you're going to be a little more shrugged up than you were when you started the rep. So a lot of times just holding for a second at lockout, pull those shoulder blades back down, going to help you reclaim a fair bit of that tightness. But honestly, Steve, don't stop squirming. Overall, I think your press is in a really good spot, and I'm not convinced that a lighter, more controlled touch is going to be the thing. I would definitely say it's worth experimenting with as an accessory movement. You're very rarely going to be disadvantaged at all by training a lighter touch, longer pause as an accessory. But I think in general, keep doing what you're doing, man. Like, your bench looks really friggin' good. Get on some comp equipment, and I think you'll be blown away at how much better everything feels pretty much instantly. So,
for some reason, I wrote that was a single, but I guess that was actually a triple.
Yeah, it was not a single.
Sorry, Steve.
Way to go, man. Everybody thinking Steve only benches 315 when he's...
Maybe the email said single, but maybe I just read it wrong. I don't know, but I'm just, I'm apologizing.
Doing Steve a disservice over
for my mistakes. We are going to move on to our next submission.
Let's do that.
This is Shiloh.
Okay.
This is a deadlift, so 505 for one rep, RP 8.5.
Okay.
I believe he's in a deadlift suit.
Looks like he's in a deadlift suit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he says, I'm going to start competing in single ply, full power this coming up year. This is only my second time in the deadlift suit and have switched to sumo deadlifting about a month ago.
Okay.
I know it's not the prettiest, but I would love some tips on what I need to work on to really lift to my full potential. And I know that, like, you you lifted equipped, and I think you like seeing some equipped lifts every now and then. So, yeah.
I lifted equipped?
Yeah. Yep.
Anyways, let's take a look at this here. So I think the biggest thing for you, Shiloh, is I would probably, if you can, get these legs seated a bit higher. Now, that's probably going to counteract a lot of advice you'll get from the equipped community, because for whatever reason, I feel like, and this is my experience in single ply, I don't know if it's the same in multiply, but for whatever reason, it seems like veterans of single ply lifting want new lifters and encourage new lifters to just like do the shit that's gonna absolutely maximize the amount of weight you can get out of equipment. But that also raises the skill ceiling of using the equipment by quite a bit and makes it much more volatile. So when we're talking about equipment, you know, I'll see a lot of veteran lifters say like, oh, you got to keep your legs really low. But when your legs are really low, it makes it really hard to get into position. If you can get into position with lower legs, sure, you can get more carryover. It's like jacking the collar of a single ply bench shirt down. If you pull your collar down, can you get more kilos out of it? For sure. Does it make the sort of bubble and an ideal place to touch on the chest shrink down to like a razor's edge in some cases? Also, yes. So anyways, I digress there. But I think that our suit is preventing us from getting into a good position here, right? I think we're getting a decent amount of tension through the hips and hamstrings. That looks good. But then we go to pull down and we're not quite getting the shoulders packed. So what happens in a suit is there's pressure this way, right? You got the pressure around the legs and the crotch and the butt, and the pressure of the top shoulder strap. And when you have pressure this way, what happens is it's gonna exaggerate the position your trunk is in. So if your trunk is in a rounded position, it's gonna push on both ends of this, and we're gonna end up rounding out even more. If, however, we get into a decent neutral or extended position, then it's gonna push, and it's not really gonna change this. What it's gonna do instead is give us that little bit of pop, that little bit of a boost off the floor. So I'm a big proponent of ensuring that when it comes to people who are relatively new to equipped deadlifting, even a lot of veterans I see who have been deadlifting for years in equipment, the deadlift suit is not going to provide you nearly as much carryover as a squat suit and a bench shirt. We had a lifter on last week who said that they don't use a suit and they compete equipped. For the deadlift, they don't use a suit. And I think a lot of people will overdo how tight they wear their suits or how tight they try to get their suits in chasing more carryover from the suit. But in actuality, I find that it's really easy to have a deadlift suit that's too tight, that's gonna prevent you from getting into a good position, and in a lot of cases make you a worse lifter than you would be raw. So it looks like, you know, if there's maybe a little bit of room to take some out in the straps and loosen the straps, I think that might allow you to get a little more packed in through the shoulders, get a little bit more of that sort of neutral range or extension, and then the suit's gonna benefit you a lot more. The other thing is, you know, especially this is more of a general sumo tip, but working on keeping this nice and tight as you initiate off the floor. Trying to maintain that back position and that sort of brace as you come up off the floor. Because what happens here is we get pulled forward instead of maintaining our position off the floor, right? As soon as we're pulling the slack out, we see this little bit of hip rise, we see the shoulders kind of creep forward a little bit, and then we're getting pulled. Not only are we having the pressure of the suit pushing us into more flexion, but we're also having the weight pull down on this flexed system. So we're ending up in more and more and more flexion, and then we're getting to the lockout and we're having to make up and get through all that extension. The other thing I'd like to see is a little bit cleaner lockout. You do lock it out, but it's very momentary. And I think unless your grip is going, in which case maybe you need some grip work, I really want you to see, sell me the lockout. Every single rep, if you're my lifter, I want you to sell me that lockout. Don't make me question it. Don't make it so quick that I couldn't have given you a down command. Sell me that lockout. I do like equipped deadlifts, it turns out. There's lots to say about them.
Yeah, and we do get equipped lifts every now and then, so it's nice to see and nice to put them in. Moving on, we have Angel. This is a 190 kilo squat for 4. Wanted to know what I can do to better my squat, as I have an obvious squat morning. My max is currently 455 and have squatted 500 in the past as an 83 kilo lifter, but I'm currently at 75 kilos. Feet face forward, as I feel I can use my quads better, but I'm willing to adapt and change to get better. Not perfect, but better. I sometimes think this happens due to weak upper back or core, but have done 315 for a double for multiple sets, so I'm unsure.
315 for a double?
That's what it said.
315 for a double.
Maybe I
four...
put 415.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's 415.
Because I'm going to say 315 for a double when you're squatting,
455.
high fours.
Yeah.
Is, that should be very easy. All right, so a couple things here. And Angel on hell. I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think we need to, number one, try not to look in the mirror. Try not to make eye contact with this guy.
Why don't you just spice it up one of these days, How about, okay, you know what, Angel? We're going to spice things up. I want you to look at the mirror more than you're already looking, okay?
Stare intently into your own eyes.
We don't want to give the same advice.
Whisper
every
yourself
form
sweet
check.
nothings. You can do it.
Anyways.
So this little point I've drawn here, that's where I want you to look. Now, the other thing is we are losing a lot of our brace out of the bottom. I don't think it's a toe angle thing. I don't think it's a stance thing. I think it's a bracing and upper back thing. So kind of in line with what you were saying, right? You felt like maybe it was your core or your upper back. I would agree with those things. So I think number one, because you're looking at yourself, your head angle is going to be changing as you're squatting. You're going to be going into more and more extension on the way down. And I think that your brace is kind of betraying you here. I think we need to be, guess what I'm going to say? Guess what that, everybody knows what that arrow means. We got to be a little more ribs down. I want you to allow yourself to tilt. I want you to allow yourself to kind of fold more in half and get back into these hips and glutes and hamstrings. Now, the other thing I want us to work on is what's going on in this upper back, because we hit the bottom and we just totally lose it, right? Those shoulders kind of come forward and up and out of position. So we have to find a way where we can orient the upper back and have that tension in and around and under this shelf all the way through the range of motion. So there's a couple different ways that I would try to coach you to try to find a solution for this. Number one, try playing with thumbs over. Right now your thumb's under the bar and you have, I guess, like a normal grip, right? Try going thumbs over the bar and see if that feels any better. The other thing you could do is try bringing your grip slightly in to create a little bit more tension and try to orient those shoulder blades a little more flat along your rib cage, because right now it looks like we're in this position, right? So our elbows are kind of up and our shoulders are kind of up. And what I'd like to see is for the shoulder blades to be a little more laid down on the back. And because those shoulder blades are up and forward, you hit the bottom, they pop even more forward and we kind of lose all stability from the upper back. Right? So our trunk and like sort of mid back and abs and stuff, we do a decent job with that, but I think it's absolutely the upper back that betrays you a little bit. So I would say play around with your grip, play around with the bar position on your back, play around with cueing. Excuse me, play around with play around with cueing your lats a little bit more and thinking about pulling your elbows in down towards your sides, and also just train your upper back. You know, I think that's maybe an often overlooked aspect of especially squat and deadlift. You know, I think bench, there's maybe some more sort of little kind of finicky, like specific ways to train your upper back for bench, and maybe a little bit less necessary. But when it comes to the upper back's function in just being a brick in the squat and the deadlift, I think there's a lot of value in heavy rows, in heavy chest supported rows, heavy bent over rows, pendlay rows. Meadows rows are great, especially if you're trying to up your grip game as well. Meadows rows, really good sort of twofold exercise for that. But yeah, that would be the biggest thing I'm seeing here. And just working on trying to keep knees forward, take your time in changing direction. Pin squats and pause squats really going to help you build some resiliency and some strength in those positions in the bottom, so that when we reverse, we're not losing all that position. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there to play around with, and I hope some of that helps and comes through and pushes your squat onwards.
Smash that mirror, Angel. I want you to take a plate and just smash all the mirrors in your gym next time you're there.
That's aggressive, man.
We just need to give some different advice sometimes.
You're going to get that guy kicked out of his gym. You can train at Dylan's house if you get kicked out of your gym for that.
We take no liability, though, for any...
Quick disclaimer. We are not responsible for anything that we tell you directly to do.
Our next submitter is Sebastian. He is also benching 315.
Submitter or submissionist?
Submissionist.
So submissionista.
This is a 315-pound bench.
Submissionisto.
And he says, I think I have a tricep weakness in my bench. Do I? And what should I do to correct it?
It's a hell of a pause there. I don't think you have a... Okay. What? All right. So. Okay. Good call not going for another one there. That was the right call. So, Sebastian, number one, I don't know what this training protocol is. We do like a 5 count pause on rep 1, and then we touch and go the next one. I would say I don't know if there's going to be a real massive benefit to doing it to training like that. I would say, if you're going to do a long pause, do that every rep, do that consistently. If you're going to do a touch and go, do that consistently, right? Changing it mid-set, it just kind of like, from a programming standpoint, to me, it muddies the waters of, okay, what adaptation are we looking for here from this exercise, right? Are we trying to build, strength and positional awareness and things that are specific to long pause bench, or are we just trying to shift a bunch of weight in doing a touch and go? It also looks like you were thinking about going for another one there. I'm not sure what that would have looked like. But I also don't think, to answer your question more directly, I don't think that we have a tricep weakness. I think we are losing shoulder position. I think that this first rep here, because we pause it so long, we start to really lose a decent bit of shoulder position. So when we press, we see the shoulders kind of flare out and wing up and out like this. And when we get to this position here, instead of this position, our triceps can't work as well, right? We get really sticky at lockout when we're out of position like that. And especially the second rep, you can see the elbows kind of like winging out as soon as we touch the chest. And we get back to here, and this is not, to me, a tricep thing. This is our shoulders are hella out of position here. So we're actually not able to get any leverage with the triceps there. So you'll notice, actually, as you get through to lockout, this shoulder blade actually depresses quite a bit, right? The elbow doesn't just lock out here. It actually comes in here. Watch this. Whoop. Oh, yeah. Turns out if those shoulder blades get back into position, boom, we can lock those triceps. So what I'm going to say here, and I did say there were some like neat little finicky ways you can train your upper back for bench. I'm going to say that those would be maybe useful for you here. Number one, higher rep seated rows, where we're essentially taking our bench grip on the bar, or on the handle rather. And we're rowing to where we touch the bench. And we're trying to really mimic the bottom position of the bench on each and every touch. And we're doing these in 12 to 15, maybe even 20 rep sets. And I also would encourage something like a shortened rest or myo reps, where we're really kind of squeezing every last little bit out of the muscles. We're getting that ideally kind of like a hypertrophy response almost. But what we're looking for is kind of a strength endurance. We're looking for the ability to get into that position over and over and over and over again, so that when we're benching, we can hold that position against the antagonist muscles that are going to be doing the pressing. So a little bit of that in the training I think is going to help. And also just being more intentional with the stimulus that you're trying to get. If we're trying to do long pauses here, this would have been a really impressive, sort of, I don't know. Let's see here. I want to try to just 1, 2, 3, 4, like a 4 count pause. But if you're going to do 4 count pause, make it 4 count pause. If you're going to do touch and go, do touch and go. Now, lastly, depending on what federation you compete in, the feet aren't all the way down. Chuck Taylors are notorious for this issue. I've seen a lifter bomb because of these shoes on the bench. If your federation doesn't care whether or not your foot is fully on the ground or whether your heel is down, disregard this completely. But if you're in a federation where they want your feet flat, don't bench in chucks. I'll just tell you that right now. Don't bench in chucks. I love Chuck Taylors as much as the next guy. I came up in them, did a lot of my lifting in chucks, but that specific thing, what we're seeing right here, prevents a lot of lifters from getting a start command, or gets a lot of lifters red lights, from the sides. So just be, I guess, mindful of that. But I really do think that this is a shoulder position thing, not a tricep thing. And yeah, that's enough. Enough said there.
This last submission, I kind of want you to say the name because I'm not sure.
I would just say it's Chow.
That's what I was thinking?
Yeah, kind of like Chow.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on the same page then. So this is Chow. This is a 140 kilo deadlift, RPE 8. I trained about for a year before starting the 16-week Calgary Barbell program. I'm now on the 6th week. That's all he gave us.
Okay. So, if you've been here before, you know the drill. Head into the comments section below. Give Chow your best advice for his deadlift here, and I will give my best advice to Chow's deadlift at the start of next week's Form Check Friday. Make sure that you tune in for it. We've got our training vlogs back going on the channel. We're getting ready for the upcoming Westerns, which will hopefully qualify me for Worlds. And yeah, check out the Calgary Barbell Training app, like and subscribe, come by the live stream, all that good stuff. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Bye.
Ciao.